Welcome back to the Combined channel. I missed you guys. Since my last video I posted with Jen, I have been hyper focused on private chefing and my schedule has been so tied up with it. But I missed creating these long form videos and I missed my YouTube community. So I've reworked my schedule. I'm going to be doing both and I've got some really fun interviews lined up with cool people that you all are gonna be so excited to hear from, and I'm gonna be sharing more in the kitchen. But today I'm sharing my chat with the beautiful Natalia Rose. Natalia is a clinical nutritionist. She's an author of 9 books, including the Raw Food Detox Diet and Forever Beautiful, the Age-Defying Detox Plan. She's the world's leading expert in deep tissue cleansing and founder of the Natalia Rose Institute. In this episode, we talk a whole lot about detoxing and cleansing, how it affects your spirit and overall sense of self, her key to living agelessly, how she became a best-selling author, and beginning the Natalia Rose community, because she did it before everyone in the wellness space decided to build their own community. So without further ado, here's my interview with Natalia Rose. How are you doing today, Natalia?
I'm great. Thank you so much, Alanna. It's wonderful to be here with you.
Yeah,
It's beautiful now after all the storms have passed in Florida. We have our first still day. The sun is shining. It's welcome.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy. Did the storm impact you at all?
We were very, very fortunate. It did not, but
Wow.
the tornadoes came to all the areas around us. So,
Oh my gosh.
the hurricane, we were out of the cone of the hurricane, but the tornadoes were sort of unforeseen and they were historic. We had over 20 tornadoes in this area.
Oh my God. I'm so grateful that you're good and happy and safe and that your family is happy and safe, and that's really lucky. So that's awesome to hear. So first of all, I want to thank you for coming on here. I posted yesterday on Instagram that we were going to chat today and the response was outrageous. People were so excited to hear and learn from you.
Well, I'm so happy to be here and I'm so happy we're collaborating, and it was wonderful to have you in the group recently and share your recipes. They're so inspired and so innovative. So you're doing so much for bringing awareness to what can be done with food while cleansing, which is the whole thing. Because if you have nothing to complain about, if what you're eating is so delicious and your body's transforming in the most miraculous ways, why would you do anything differently?
No, totally. It is that thing. We talked about it a bunch. It's utilizing foods in a different way and going for the higher quality foods. You don't have to, that doesn't mean you have to, lose the taste or the flavor or anything. It can be so delicious and you see it in such a different way. And you're obviously an example of that, with all of the work that you've done as well. And I'm just so excited to talk to you more about it. So I guess my first question for you, I know that you're a certified clinical nutritionist. You ultimately came to feel frustrated with, I guess, the limitations of a traditional diet, of the traditional dietary approach as it related to your clients and your own personal health struggles. Can you first talk about those frustrations and then how you came to your ultimate life-changing solution?
Sure. Well, I guess it was, I'll go back. I mean, the flash I have when you say that is that when I was growing up, there was this idea that models and all these beautiful women were eating whatever they wanted to eat. But yeah, all the cool girls, they just eat everything and they're beautiful and they have these legs for days and they're just, their skin is perfect. And well, that's just maybe just not fair because I just didn't get that DNA. But so it was this incredible frustration because I found that if I ate any of those mainstream foods, I was immediately rendered heavy and pimply and miserable and low energy. And so it was this really fake, false, erroneous lie that we were sold. I mean, now, of course, you could say it's clear that both genders suffer from the media's messages and all these lies. But in those days, it was really very female focused in that sense. We have to look the lie in the eye and say, okay, this has harmed us. These messages, these untruths have sent us in a direction that's totally disabled and handicapped our bodies. I mean, what else is it called? When people are having hip replacements and knee replacements in their midlife, that's not supposed to be the case. When children are on medications and tweens are going on Accutane for their skin, that makes me furious. Right. Because all those things that cultural norms considered totally acceptable to put in a child's body then results in the preteen years in these outbreaks, acne. It could be eczema. It could be psoriasis. So all of these things, the skin's basically showing the internal inflammation and pathogenic overload from what's been put in. And then you're going to suppress it with something so toxic that's realistically carcinogenic. So where's that going to lead? So it's just like lie upon lie upon lie. And so I think the part of me that's just very hardwired for justice, like I couldn't stand for it, not for myself or for anyone else who I could have, any chance of conveying this information to. It was really just a sort of like, let's stop the lies because they're harming us. They're stealing our joy. They're stealing our life force. They're stealing our life experience. And we can get ourselves out. It's just a matter of awareness and turning the whole thing around.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting though, because I did, I do my research. So I listened to other interviews with you, and you talked about how growing up, your mom really encouraged you to do fashion shows and was very like glamour focused and beauty focused. It's funny because when I talked to Gil, who I know is your greatest mentor, mine as well, he always talks about how like if you're a teacher, an influencer, and you're both of those things, like, the ego is taken out of it. When did that shift happen for you internally to go from this upbringing of so kind of vanity focused, which we all can relate to in a way, and then just really focus on the internal?
That was a process, definitely a process. And I think ultimately in the beginning, there was a sense of there's more power if I align with the life force than there is if I don't. So the more I aligned with the life force, the more I could see how toxic the dysfunctional, let's say, inclinations were, the things that would lead one to be self-focused or vain. What you found was that there's more power in humility. When you celebrate your true self, your authentic self, when you're in that presence, you don't need validation externally. And so the more I aligned with the laws of life, the natural laws, but the more it was just I recoiled. It was like that was never me. Where did that come from? I don't believe in that. Those thoughts, those feelings, they were poison that was poured into me. That wasn't the true self. So as I restored my consciousness, I could see that all of those, the fakeness, it was just an illusion, and it was never going to lead anywhere good. So it was a natural process, and it came from recognizing that the body cleansing and the good that was coming from that, the clarity of mind, the openness of heart, the clarity of the body, the ability to be fluid and be somewhat ageless, and all of these things that came from cleansing the body, as above, so below, that also came, that goodness also emerged from cleansing the toxic thoughts, the toxic feelings. But if we resist that, that's when people get attracted to the cleansing lifestyle. They don't want to deal with their internal stuff. They want to bypass it somehow, like cleansing bypass. We've heard about spiritual bypassing. Well, there's this also kind of this cleansing bypassing. We have to see what's real. We have to see what's been poured into us. As children, we come out just these glowing orbs of God force, and I kind of like into a garden filled with, it has everything it needs in the soil. And then something else comes in and pours its poison onto it. It's not that the garden didn't know any better. It's just that it couldn't express what it knows. We start to remember our true self as we expunge the poisons. But if we don't want to look at the poisons, and we're trying to cleanse our body, but we're not willing to see what's in our subconscious mind, all the things that have been poured into us, then we're going to keep walking into walls. So the people that get stuck, the people that wind up with addictions, even though they're supposedly in the cleansing lifestyle, or the people that really struggle, they're just not able to look at the truth yet. And when you really start to see the truth, and you can you can integrate it, you can release it so much more readily once you've integrated it, then you can move forward.
Yeah. When you say, just for those who don't know, or I mean, I feel like most people, if you're subscribed to this channel, you understand the cleansing life or have heard me talk about it a bunch. With when you say aligning with your truth and seeing your toxicity, how do you encourage people to come to that truth, or how have you come to that truth?
This is a great question, and this is why I think I've cared so much to unpack it and define it, so we can do that. All right, so when we're cleansing the body, meaning that we're not just eating clean foods, but we're also releasing the waste. Awaken plus release equals cleansing. And we see the matter itself. We see what leaves. We see the sticky, gluey, mucousy, poisonous garbage. We see the noxious gas. We see all of this stuff come out of us. Well, to the same degree, thought forms and belief systems, toxic belief systems, and dysfunctional feelings have all developed as a pattern within us. Again, it's not our true self. It's that which we had to receive from the toxic world and then learn to cope with. And that developed these patterns. So we all have these patterns, these kind of coping mechanisms and these ways that we've adapted to the toxic world. And remember, and I always like to differentiate between world and life. People often say the world and life as if they're saying the same thing. Life is not the world. The world is the programming, the cultural patterns. It in no way reflects the life force. So it's really clear when you actually recapitulate. This is a very important process. You recapitulate means you go back in time and you consider. You have to sit down with your clarity. Good to have pen and paper. I like to use some kind of writing tool rather than typing this on the phone. First of all, you want to put your phones away when you do this kind of exercise. But when we write, our hands are connected with our brains. And if we want to repattern or basically get our brains to a better pattern, then we want to do that with our hands. So the more we write these things down, the better. And then you start to unpack how our culture became that way. We discover what there is to clean up. We discover what there was put into us that isn't us. And this is where it gets really exciting, because just like the acidic foods are sticky and gluey and stick in the tissue, so too do the toxic things. So all those toxic movies and the music and the people and the thoughts and the vulgar language and the violence. And when you really recapitulate it, when you really sit down and think about it, and I'd like to take it year by year, or at least in groups of years, like 0 to 3, 4 to 7. And you really sit down and you think about, where were you? Who was in your life? What were the messages? What was the vibration around you? What was on television? Like, just all the things. Who was speaking in your ear? Who's the voice in your head? Then you really start to get a sense of it. It can seem overwhelming. I'm sure as I'm saying this right now, if people are listening, they're like, oh my gosh, if I did that, I think I wouldn't be able to handle it all.
Be crying.
And the thing is, we don't want to get into self-pity. Self-pity is very destructive, very toxic. One of the things that saved my life, I think, is discovering how dangerous self-pity is. Knowing that has gotten me through the hardest times in my life, because I never go into self-pity. It is so dangerous, and most people go straight into that space. So as you go into this, you want to stay very high in your heart. You want to stay as close as you can to what I call the I am presence, the true self, knowing that you're going on this journey to enable yourself to see. And everyone is capable of this. Basically, finding those qualities within themselves, which we have to grow. Otherwise, what's the point in any of this? So training the courage and the patience to have with yourself to sit down and do these exercises, look at it clearly in the eye, and know that it's not the end of the story. And we desire to get to our true self so much. The experience of being exposed to it becomes the greatest hero's journey.
I love everything you just said. Like when I started cleansing, I started becoming, well, first of all, lighter, because of course, like lighter, but that also included colonics, and it's not just what goes in, it's what goes out, right? It's that, and it is the self-awareness. You have such an increased sense of self and like what you actually want to do. That's why I started my business and my company and everything. You should never sit in self-pity. You need the quote unquote bad in order to see the good. If everything was all good, you wouldn't appreciate it in the same way. I initially heard about you, as I've mentioned, from my mom, who got your book, The Raw Food Detox Diet. And I know, just again from research, that you faced some challenges at the beginning from publishers who were wary of the raw detox-based diet and its mainstream appeal. And then you became a best-selling author. I'm so curious about the initial publishing challenges and what changed the trajectory of the book's success.
The story is quite different, and I'm really happy to share it, because it's one of the coolest stories of my entire life. Where should I start? So I had this homegrown book with the 5 principles that are in the raw food detox diet, and it was a spiral binder that I gave to all my clients. So when a client would come in, we'd sit down, we'd go through their whole personalized plan and everything, and create the protocol, and then I would always send them home with this spiral binder, and it had recipes, it had the principles, it had tips, it was maybe 100 pages or so. And what happened was, one of my clients was best friends with one of the top women in publishing, and she had her own imprint at HarperCollins. This is where, that whole saying, luck is where opportunity meets preparation. So Judith was spending the weekend at my client's home, and she picked up the spiral binder that I gave to my client when I had my session with her. And the next Monday, I was called into Judith's office. We had a meeting, and we had a book deal.
Wow.
And in fact, they chose the title. Judith was all over the whole raw food thing, and she just got it. And she was way ahead of her time on everything, which is why she was so successful. So she just saw the future for it, and then we did 3 books together.
That is so cool. So then let me totally correct what I said. Did you get any pushback at all from anyone once the book was released?
In fact, I couldn't believe it because the very next day after the book came out, my inbox was flooded. It was like, I didn't even know what was beginning. So I love this quote by Victor Hugo: "There's nothing so powerful as an idea whose time has come." And it was still ahead of its time.
Yeah.
When I think about the time, well, I started seeing Gil in 2000, but in those like first few years, I was going to the Lower East Side, but everything was like really, really on the down low, and really the early days. It was truly, the time was coming, and it's still, it hasn't even reached the mainstream yet.
While we're talking about your books, how did you develop your detox principles for Detox for Women, for that specific program?
I'll tell you exactly how it came out. And I'm just trying to get my years in order here. At a certain point, I realized, so even though I had a busy practice and a lot of people are coming through, every day, every week, most of my insights I took from my internal laboratory, because I'm sort of like, the girl next door, the every woman. Like, my body is a tricky body. So I didn't have an easy body to work with. So if I could fix myself, I could pretty much fix anyone. And so what I would find was with the process of cleansing, it became clear that for a while, fruit worked. For a while, sprouted grains would work. There's certain things that kind of worked, both because it was early days, or if it's the early days for people, or because the planet was not as acidic as it gradually has become, even in the last 25 years. So I started to notice that the impact that the sugars and starches were having on the female body, even in a largely raw context, even properly combined, even with colonics or enemas, was still going to keep them limited. It wasn't going to get them to the holy grail of feeling consistently symptom-free, consistent in just ageless, all of these things. Because the combination of the estrogenic overload in the environment and the sugars was such a hotbed for fungus. Fungus just derails everything in the body. So, where you have fungus, you have parasites, you have all sorts of rogue microbes and things. But the fungus kind of sat out as like the sort of the pivot point on all this. So at the same time, you couldn't increase the animal flesh products because, what are you going to eat meat? I know, a lot of people think it's a good idea. Although I'm aware of what's going on right now in the meat movement, but, logically it's a dead carcass and it's going to do what dead carcasses do, which is rot. So especially at, the body's temperature and all of this. So the answer was not to abstain from fruit and starch and then go heavy on the animal products. And then a lot of the starchy vegetables, if they were overdone, even to a certain extent, sweet potatoes could really be overeaten. Women, especially, if there's a lot of fungus, there's a drive to consume more starch. And if you're not eating grain, well, you might still overeat on the starchy vegetables. And it's not just for women, by the way. That was the publisher's naming the book. It always it didn't sit perfectly with me because I knew it was for men too. And I could see at the time, this is now, I don't know, 12, maybe it's like 12 years ago or so, I can't remember. But you started to see a lot of estrogenic men. I mean, I was noting it. I could see that, men were getting hippie, men were getting breasty. This was all it was the estrogen and the sugars and starches, but it was also the hormones from the animal products. So the animal products had so many problems with them. They still have so many problems with them. That hasn't gone anywhere. Beware. You heard it here. It is, it's problematic, but good food combining is there and good colon cleansing is there. There can be a place for it. I'm not saying it has to be completely avoided. It just can't be amplified. Animal fleshes are, they're very contracting. They get small in the body, and it takes a while sometimes for the reaction to be revealed. Whereas starches are very expansive. So you see them more readily. You'll see yourself bloat faster eating a piece of bread than eating a steak. You'll see a contraction and think, oh, this is good. I'm getting leaner. No, it's just contracting. So in any case, all of these factors, I could just see the need for there to be a sort of a concise, simple approach to solve the problem, which is vegetable-centric, green vegetable-centric ideally, there is room for fish, there is room for goat cheese, there is room for a glass of red wine or two, and there is room for some fruit, ideally the low sugar fruits. But then let's properly combine, let's put them in good food order, let's keep the colon cleansing going. So make these adjustments so that, once again, to come full circle at the beginning of our conversation, we can still love the food, feel totally satisfied and happy, but also have the results that we want, which is to have no inflammation, to be ageless, to have clear, beautiful skin, tons of energy, very vital, fluid body.
Real quick, can you explain how goat cheese fits to those who don't, who might not understand and, might flag it like, wait, that's an animal product?
Sure. Goats, the best way to describe it is the issue with milk is that in the protein of milk, there's something called casein. Casein is what enables the animal, it's like a program for the animal to grow to a certain size. So the casein molecule in cow's milk is 300 times bigger than our casein molecule, our human casein molecule. It's impossible for us to digest. So everyone is actually allergic to cow's milk, but certain people have more of a reaction than others at the outset. But ultimately, it causes mucoid plaque to form, and the body just can't break down easily. It's going to cause backlog in the intestinal tract. It's just a problem. But goats, they're more our size. I know if you get down on all fours, you like a goat. Kind of similar. So the casein in goat's milk is similar to our casein. The size of it is similar to ours. So we digest it so much better. So you've got a hierarchy, of course, to the whole thing. So raw goat or sheep too. Raw goat or sheep cheese is the best. Then pasteurized goat or sheep cheese, it can be included as well, but it's not going to be, because the raw will have the enzymes. So it'll be easy to digest, not just because the casein molecule is acceptable for our body, but also because it will have its own enzymes already in it. It's not to say, I'm not of the school where a lot of people who are big into raw dairy believe that it's alkaline. I still don't believe it's alkaline. We're the only species that consumes milk after weaning age, especially that of another species. It's bizarre. It's not a health generator. It's not a health generator in and of itself, but it is a health generator if it creates a lifestyle that enables you to go the long haul. So for me, it's like having the organic wine option, the dark chocolate, the goat cheese, wine, cheese, and chocolate. Like, what am I going to complain about? I can do this forever, no problem. Whereas if you're dairy free and you don't even realize that the goat dairy is an option, even for people who are allergic to cow's milk, they usually are fine with goat products. Not all goat products are so goaty, because a lot of people think it's the taste and everything, but some of them are not goaty at all. But if you have that option, and suddenly you can have vegetables with melted goat cheese, or you can make a cauliflower pizza with a goat mozzarella, or there's just so many options that open up to you with the raw goat dairy or goat and sheep's dairy at large.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think it's nice for people to hear that like all foods fit, and that's something I definitely always want to stress is that all high quality foods fit, and that you don't have to limit yourself, and there is food freedom in this. So I think that's really cool. You talk a lot about agelessness that comes with this lifestyle. What to you is the fountain of youth?
Well, it's love, because love comes from the universal. It's the essence of life. So ultimately, that is the source of all agelessness. The reason I say love is because it is a synonym of the infinite intelligence. So these are all synonymous: infinite intelligence, light, life force, love. It's all the same substance. It is an actual substance. So the more of that substance, the higher the quotient we possess of that substance, the more ageless we're going to be. But now, here are the qualities of that. And this is what I think is a little bit more of what you're looking for. The qualities of that are going to be fluidity, flexibility. We're going to be high-spirited, open-hearted. We're going to be connected with our genius. All of those things are creating this flow, this wonderful flow of this love force, life force, infinite intelligence, this source force. And so that's why I was saying earlier, like the more I aligned myself with that, I could see that was always going to be, or that has always proven itself to be the ticket to all good things. So the big thing you want to avoid if you want to remain ageless is the C word, calcification.
Oh.
No, we want to avoid calcification.
What is calcification?
Calcification is where things become rigid. There's the rigidity. Okay. So you can think about, well, let me not give you that. When you see something like become fossilized, Okay, think about that. Think
Yeah.
about how people age in our culture. Everything becomes stiff and stuck, immovable, calcified.
I see.
So I'm glad you asked me that. So in the raw food movement, I see a lot of calcification because the focus is wrong. The focus is on the food being raw, not everything being in flow. So if you focus on flow, you can't go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
If you even just anyone sitting and listening to this right now, just feel into your body, feel into your jaw, feel into you, move your hands around, wiggle your toes. I always like to move my wrist around. Feel like what is the degree of your calcification? And that's as above, so below also. Our thoughts can be super. If we do the same things and think the same way, and we have done for so long, we've adopted someone else's belief system, guaranteed your thoughts are calcified. Yeah. Same thing with our feelings, same thing with our spirituality. But so focus on fluidity, focus on flow, and know that calcification is the result of, well, calcification is akin to death. So we want to avoid decay and calcification. And decay and calcification go together.
I heard somebody say once they were older, they'll feel old the second that they stop listening to the younger people. The second they stop listening to them with an open heart, they'll know, like, damn, I'm old now. And that's true. That actually really, the open-heartedness of everything is so, it is so important. I've seen even on Instagram, I've been talking about food combining cleansing for like, I don't know, 6 years now. There is a lot of criticism I notice from the medical community about detoxing, juicing, getting a colonic, consuming raw foods. But at the same time, there's also a lot of people in the medical community that have an open mind and are interested in food combining and detoxing. And I'm curious how you personally have balanced the two extremes, and have your methods ever influenced any medical professionals?
Well, what I will say to that is that there's a right and a wrong way to go about doing this. Raw food in and of itself, colonics in and of themselves, all of these things, they have to be done correctly. There's a distinct method to getting it right. And if you get any one of the pieces of it wrong, then it will reflect poorly on the work. So there are a lot of these fallacies running around that scare people away. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to embodiment. And if you're taking your guidance from someone who is actually walking their talk and living the life and exemplifying it, and you're happy with what you're seeing, if you're going to take advice from anyone on anything, you have to actually, if you're going to bring something into your life, you have to know that you want the traits that that person embodies. Do we want the traits that the medical industrial complex embodies? That's something it's a fair question. If someone's just wearing a stethoscope and a white coat, but they're calcified and they're not well and they're popping a bunch of pills to keep, I take nothing, absolutely nothing. I haven't really spoken about this, but I went through a really difficult divorce, horrific divorce. Every divorce, of course, is difficult. Mine was particularly horrific. I didn't take a single thing, like no anxiety medication. I've never taken an anxiety medication ever. When you live this lifestyle, your body's clarity and openness doesn't mean that you don't suffer pain, emotional pain, but you can move through it with kind of an equanimity that I think is very difficult if you're taking in things that are full of stimulants. I've never had a cup of coffee since my eldest child just turned 24. I haven't had a cup of coffee since I found out I was pregnant with her.
Wow.
I do enjoy my organic red wine from time to time. But I would never consume wine if I didn't cleanse, because I wouldn't want the residue of alcohol in my body. So I do think it's damaging. I don't think it's healthy. But because of the way I live my life, I'm able to get away with it. So we have, ultimately, I know this isn't exactly answering your question the way you asked it, but I think it's important to shed light on the fact that, if you're going to take wisdom from someone, are they exemplifying? If you pull back the curtain of their life, what would you actually see? Is it a front? Is it a facade? Or is it real? Is it life generating, or is it just, covering over and coping? Is another coping mechanism for something that doesn't work.
Yeah. Thank you for being so honest. And I think a lot of people would appreciate that, just because you are so full of love. So to hear about something that can be really difficult and just see you and hear from you, and you're still so full of love and light and all this happiness, I think that's really encouraging. And that's who you are anyways. So that's really, thank you for sharing that.
We all have hardships. It's how we get through them. And I do want to give everyone hope, because everything that could befall the female body that was difficult, I had dealt with, that was in physical form. So I guess here's the goal I want to share with you, is that I had all those things. I had I had chronic bladder infections, chronic bronchitis. I had terrible skin. I hated my body. I fought with my weight. I had brain fog, and I just all the dysfunctional emotions. I dug myself out of all of that. And then at that point, that happened very quickly. I mean, within a year of cleansing, I was off to the races. I never looked back. I never had a problem again. I never had another bladder infection, never got antibiotics ever again. My kids never took antibiotics, by the way. In dealing with some of the most difficult life circumstances in the next 25 years, it's kind of broken down now into two groups, the first 25 years and then the second grouping, I had all these other difficulties, but because my body, my being was so consistently, steadily well at a state of clarity, physical strength, I never had any symptoms. I didn't have to deal with my body never held me back. My body enabled me to just go and deal with all these things. As long as I now and then caught up on sleep and some of these things to balance and got plenty of exercise and got into the sunlight, I could do anything. I could deal with all of these external difficulties. And that's the leg up I've had, because I don't know how I would have survived these things and not absolutely been just ripped apart if I didn't have that going for me.
That makes sense, because honestly, when you clean all with the cleansing, you cleared all the minutia, all the stuff, and you're able to see things for what they are. And the fact that you can do that and you're able to just like take it straight on, that is the beauty of cleansing to me too. It's just taking life on in the best way possible to be, because you're the best version of yourself and you handle things as that amazing, powerful, awesome version of yourself. You're the example of that.
I'm happy to share this. I know people suffer and I know they struggle. That's why I got into this work to begin with. I understand the human condition because I suffered from it myself. But, if you can, for example, when we're given so many cultural directives to indulge when things get hard. Don't indulge when things get hard. When things get hard, cleanse, go to your green juice, have your beautiful Alanna meals. Like that is what you want to do. You want to be as on point as possible because you're going to need that strength. If you go and get the tub of Haagen-Dazs because you had this breakup or something happens and you do what they show you to do in the rom-coms, you're a goner. Forget it.
Totally. It's funny you say that. I'm thinking my boyfriend, whenever I have like something big the next day and I don't, and I drink also, like I'm, as long as I'm doing 95, 98%, right? Like that little percentage that I drink, like alcohol it's fine. Like to me, it's fine. But I always say when something big's happening, or when, even if it's a good thing or if something that I'm a little anxious about, I always want to be clear. And so he knows that. And he's always like, I get it. You're having a clear night. And so we call it a clear. It's important.
Yes, I love that. It's perfect because you need that clarity to make the next right choice.
Yeah. It's like there's no reason to block a thing. Like, what's the point? And then once you feel good, why would you want to stop that too? When you know what's right for you. So switching gears again, you are such an inspiration in this. Now it's like a way bigger wellness space. It's just called wellness now, like this, whatever that is sometimes. But you built a community. You built the Natalia Rose Institute, and you did something miraculous. And that was before people really talked about community. Community now is just a buzzword. It's marketing. It's a lot of stuff. But you did it, and you really like pioneered it in the wellness space, I would say, at least for what, at least publicly, like in the, where media is involved and stuff and people can actually see it. How did you even start your community?
Well, we had one back in the mid 2000s. I'm not sure if you're referring, that was the original one. And then there was a little hiatus between that and then starting the Pure Power on the Heartbeat app, which was more recent. It was a sense of, at the time I was running courses periodically, but I realized that people needed the day-to-day contact. They needed not to just have the, maybe 3 or 4 courses even a year. They needed to know that they were handheld through the entire process because the process is so dynamic. It's, as we're talking about here, it's clearly not, the physical is so important and there's so much specificity to the physical itself, getting it right, like we just discussed. Mm-hmm. But then all the other questions come up. Relationships, emotions, mind space. What does it really mean to be mindful? Really the path to it's the fabled journey of enlightenment, essentially. Because as we cast away these sandbags, as we take them off of our hot air balloons, we start to rise and the vista becomes much broader, much clearer. We start to really see the landscape that we're on, and then we're ready for more and more and more. And that's why this whole process is so beautiful, because it's not like we just now have beautifully functioning bodies and clear minds and we just go about life in the same way. No, we become so much more expansive. We see what we're really here for. Our purpose becomes clear, and our true nature, our true authentic self gets to be in the driver's seat, where the little ego self was running the show before. And that was kind of boring because it was stuck in all sorts of, it was stuck in the poison. But then when you meet your true self, your higher self, your authentic self, you want to live a different kind of a life. But then who do you have to talk about that with? It seems a bit odd to most people. So to have a community where you can not only be constantly learning more, knowing, that the path is going to continue, but also to be able to share that experience with others and be able to voice when we have our community meetings. Anyone can come on and just talk about where they are, what they're experiencing, and have input from not just me, but so many, I don't know if the term veteran is the right word, but long-term cleansers. Everyone's in different stages. You can get help and input and insight, inspiration, and recipes. All of these things it's so it's a whole wonderful, I don't want to say even world, because I don't love that word world. It's a whole big, wonderful just feast of coming to a higher way of seeing life.
Yeah. I was speaking to your class, I guess like a month ago now, but I thought it was really cool how you held space for everyone and allowed them, like you said, to talk about what they're going through, what's going on. And I think it's really nice that you also have like your heartbeat app it's fun when I get those notifications. It's fun for me, honestly. It's funny because I use it sometimes, even it's like a little data point. What are people interested in? It drives meaningful conversation that's food related. You do the coolest job of holding their hand and making everyone feel like their voice is heard. And I've seen it, and I love your community. I think they're a really awesome group. What do you think of the wellness space in 2024?
I have to be honest, I don't really pay too much attention to what goes on out in the world.
Sure.
Because I'm on such a big internal journey. Okay, let me see if I can. I gotta orient a little bit to this.
No problem.
I think on the one hand, I can't say exactly what's going on out there, other than it seems like there's a lot of activity and there's a lot of glomming on to hacks. What's the term, that the trending thing, like hacks? I guess it's like, okay, so whether it's the cold plunge or it's, going paleo or whatever it is, at the end of the day, we have to be scientists. And meaning, if we ignore the waste in the body, nothing else is going to work. We're still going to decay. We're still going to rot. We have to deal with the major problem, which is the accumulation of this residue. And in that residue, of course, we'll find the heavy metals, find the radiation, the chemicals, all of these things that everyone's so worried about, the hormones, all the things that are in the environment that people are worried about, the forever chemicals, the plastic beady things in the fish, and you're eating the fish and they're going to your body. There's only one way out, and that's to dig ourselves out of our own cucky poop ourselves. It's a dirty job, but we got to do it. And so all of these other hacks, I think cold plunges are great. And that's why I don't really bother tuning in too much, because to me, it just sounds like a lot of noise. And I want to just focus on helping my clients, helping my community, keep them on the right path, get everybody soaring. And again, not just physically, because wellness, the other thing is, take meditation, for example, and mindfulness. So we don't actually want to be full of mind. We want to be empty of mind. So focusing on something and being mindful, that's kind of like, it's got to lead somewhere. Yes, we need to be able to control our focus and be mindful and think about what we do, and do it with presence and deep breathing and all these things. Yes, but then where are we going to go? We're going to stay full of mind, stay full of the cultural mindset. That's not going to get us in. It's still the toxic stuff that's going to be, infiltrating basically running our brain, running our mind. So same thing with meditation. So if we're going to go into meditation to quiet the mind, okay, that's great. But then when are we going to meet the authentic self? So, where I like to see people arrive with meditation is going into the authentic self and being present with the authentic self, remembering the authentic self. So there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of different paths to get there, of course. But eventually, if you don't come to the realization that your garden has been just poisoned and you need to get the poison out and you need to do the work getting the poison out, then you're really just rearranging furniture in a house that's burning down.
Yeah, there is a lot of noise. So I'm glad that you said that. I think it's important, yeah, just to listen to yourself and what works for you and what you know to be true, just like you said. My last question for you is, what advice would you give to your younger self at the beginning of your journey?
I would say trust it.
Mhm.
Trust it. And I never doubted it. Thanks to Gil, I never doubted it. He gave me such a sense of confidence in the past. And he gave me such a sense of like, I never feared any of the things that people would have feared because I had his voice in my ear saying, that's not a concern. Don't worry about that. So I had the benefit of like knowing I just need to keep going. And keeping going basically meant more and more doors would open, more doors of clarity, more doors of consciousness. So I would just say, like, you're on the right path. I mean, the only thing I wish I knew sooner was the I am presence. I wish I'd come to my authentic self sooner because so many of the things that I did that caused me more challenges were done by my, let's say, my lower self, my ego consciousness self, my culturally programmed self. And I wish I'd known that before, but I couldn't have told myself that then because I had to go through all that I did to discover it. So, yeah, everything was perfect. Yeah, I wouldn't do anything differently.
Love that. Thank you so much, Natalia. I loved having you on here, and you are just like such an amazing person to talk to. I could talk to you for hours, and just listen to you talk about the I am presence and like just I don't know, life. You just like I'm like excited to start my day again, and it's like 3 o'clock. So you're such a ball of energy, and I feel that. Where can people find you? Where can they join your community and all of that good stuff, and get
So
your book?
thank you. Thank you for those beautiful things you said. I feel the same way about you, Alanna. Thank you so much. It's been such a joy, and thank you for all of your brilliant questions, and it's been so much fun. So the best way to find me would probably be on Instagram, Natalia Rose Institute. And then the community, if you reach out to us on Instagram, if you DM us, we can send you the information for the community.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I will link all of that in the show notes. Thanks, Natalia.
Oh, it's been so fun. Huge love.